There's a pattern that Carl Jung identified over a century ago, and that Andrew Huberman's neuroscience is finally validating. Before finding the one, rare souls go through a preparation process that most people will never understand. It's not coincidence. It's not bad luck. It's a precise psychological and neurological mechanism that the universe uses to guarantee that when two people finally meet, they are ready for each other. In August of 2025, Andrew Huberman invited Lori Gottlieb onto his podcast. She's a psychotherapist and the author of one of the most important books on relationships ever written. Together, they revealed something that shifted my understanding of why some people seem to wait so long for true love. It's not that these individuals are unlucky. It's that they need to go through a process of individuation first. Their brains need to reorganize. Their wounds need to be acknowledged. Their strengths need to be integrated. And only then, when that preparation is complete, does the universe send the right person. Hold on, because what I'm about to explain is something that most therapists will never tell you. Jung developed a concept called synchronicity. These are meaningful coincidences that seem connected, not by cause and effect, but by meaning. You think of someone, and that person calls. You dream of a place, and the next day you receive an invitation to go there. You feel that something big is about to happen, and it does. Most people dismiss these experiences as random, but Jung spent decades studying them and came to a radical conclusion. Synchronicities are not chance. They are signs that you are aligned with something bigger than yourself. And here's the connection that almost no one makes. Synchronicities increase dramatically during critical phases of the individuation process. When you're about to make a big leap in your psychological development, the meaningful coincidences multiply. And that includes the period leading up to meeting the right person. Neuroscience now has an explanation for this. When you undergo deep psychological transformation, the activity of your default mode network changes. This is the brain network responsible for self-awareness, for the narrative of the self, for how you perceive yourself in the world. When this network reorganizes, you literally start to perceive patterns that previously went unnoticed. You become more sensitive to meaningful connections. You notice signs that were always there, but that your brain filtered out as noise. So it's not that the universe starts sending more synchronicities, it's that you're finally ready to see them. But there's a crucial detail that changes everything. Jung observed that rare souls, individuals with high sensitivity and psychological depth, often go through prolonged periods of solitude before finding compatible partners. And this isn't a flaw. It's a characteristic of the process. These individuals can't settle for superficial connections. They need something more. And to attract that something more, they first need to become that something more. Esther Perel, another guest on Huberman's podcast in October of 2025, explained this in a way I'll never forget. She said that healthy relationships aren't about finding the perfect person. They're about evolving together with another person. And to be able to evolve together, you first need to have started your own evolution. People who skip this step end up in relationships that limit instead of expand. And that's what the universe does with rare souls. It forces them to evolve first. It puts them in situations that seem painful, but are actually developing exactly the qualities that they'll need when the right person arrives. Hold on to this information, because it will make much more sense when I reveal the specific signs. Let me explain what happens neurologically during this preparation period. The human brain has a capacity called neuroplasticity. the ability to reorganize itself. By forming new neural connections, this capacity is greatest during childhood, but never disappears completely, and certain experiences can reactivate it intensely. Huberman explained in his November 2025 episode on social bonds that we have something called social homeostasis. Just as the body regulates temperature and sugar levels, the brain regulates our need for connection. When we're isolated for too long, specific circuits activate, creating an impulse to seek connection. But here's what's interesting. This impulse is not blind. It's shaped by the experiences we've had during isolation. If during that period of solitude, you've done inner work, if you've confronted your shadows, if you've developed self-awareness, then when social homeostasis pushes you to seek connection, you'll seek a different kind of connection. You won't accept just anything to fill the void. You'll instantly recognize. When you find someone who's on the same level of evolution, Jung called this finding the person with whom you can continue individuation. It's not about finding someone who completes you. It's about finding someone with whom you can continue growing. But here's what academia doesn't want you to know. The preparation that rare souls undergo is not random. It follows a specific pattern that Jung mapped out and that neuroscience is confirming. There are distinct phases, each with its function, each preparing you for a different aspect of the relationship that's to come. The first phase is dissolution. It's when everything you thought you knew about yourself and about relationships starts to crumble. Old relationships end. Beliefs about love are questioned. You feel like you're losing your footing. Most people resist this phase. They try to go back to what it was before. But rare souls understand, even if only intuitively, that this dissolution is necessary. You can't build something new without first clearing the ground. The second phase is confronting the shadow. Jung discovered that we all have parts of ourselves that we repress, parts that we consider unacceptable and that we push into the unconscious. These parts he called the shadow. And before you can have a truly deep relationship, you need to integrate your shadow, because everything you don't integrate, you project. If you haven't confronted your fear of abandonment, you'll project that onto your partner. If you haven't integrated your anger, you'll explode it on the one who least deserves it. The third phase is reconnecting with the self. After dissolving the old structure and confronting the shadow, you need to reconnect with who you really are. Not who your parents wanted you to be, not who society expects, but your authentic essence. Jung called this the self, with a capital S, and it's the center of the psyche, the equilibrium point between the conscious and the unconscious. When you connect with the self, you stop needing someone else to complete you. You're already complete. And paradoxically, that's what makes you ready for a real relationship. Neuroscience validates each of these phases. In the dissolution phase, studies show increased activity in the amygdala and anterior cingulate cortex, regions associated with processing uncertainty and emotional pain. During shadow work, there's activation of the medial prefrontal cortex, responsible for self-reflection and integrating contradictory experiences. When reconnecting with the self, researchers observe greater coherence between different brain regions, as if the brain is finally functioning as a fully integrated whole. But don't worry, because I'm about to reveal the specific signs that this preparation is nearing its end. The first sign is a change in the quality of your solitude. In the beginning of this preparation, solitude hurts. It feels like an emptiness that needs to be filled. But as you progress through the process, solitude transforms. It stops being absence and becomes presence. You start to enjoy your own company. You stop desperately searching for connection and start to feel connected to yourself. The second sign is an increase in synchronicities. As I explained before, the closer you are to an important transition, the more meaningful coincidences appear. You start seeing repeated numbers, encountering people who mention exactly what you were thinking, receiving opportunities that seem custom-made for you. These aren't accidents. They are indicators that you are aligning with a new level of reality. The third sign is a sudden clarity about what you really want. During most of the preparation, there is confusion. You don't know exactly what you're looking for in a partner, but when the preparation is nearing its end, this clarity emerges naturally. You no longer need to make lists of desired characteristics. You simply know, and this knowing comes from a place deeper than the rational mind. The fourth sign is a sense of peace with the timing. In the beginning, you question why it's taking so long. You compare yourself with others who seem to find love easily. You wonder what's wrong with you. But when the preparation is complete, that anxiety disappears. You understand that everything is happening at the right time. You trust the process, and that trust isn't blind. It comes from the experience of having gone through the phases and having emerged transformed. The fifth sign is perhaps the most important. You stop searching and start being found. Rare souls who have completed this preparation consistently report that they weren't looking when they found the right person. They had given up the active search. They were focused on their own lives, their own purposes, their own evolutions. And it was exactly in this state of non-seeking that the right person appeared. Andrew Huberman would explain this in terms of the nervous system. When you're desperately searching for something, your sympathetic nervous system is activated. You're in hunt mode, and that state, while useful for certain situations, repels the kind of deep connection that rare souls seek. When you stop searching, your parasympathetic system takes over. You enter a state of receptivity, of openness. And that state is magnetic. It naturally attracts people who are on the same level of consciousness. Let me tell you 3 stories that illustrate this process. The first is about a 38-year-old man who spent 10 years alone. He'd had relationships in his youth, but none of them worked out. He started to think there was something fundamentally wrong with him. But during those 10 years, without consciously realizing it, he went through all the phases of preparation. He confronted childhood traumas. He developed a career aligned with his purpose. He learned to like himself. And then, when he had made peace with the possibility of never finding someone, she appeared in a completely ordinary situation. He recognized her immediately. It wasn't an overwhelming passion. It was a profound recognition, as if they already knew each other. They've been together for 3 years, and he describes the relationship as something he never imagined possible. The second story is about a 45-year-old woman. She had gone through 2 marriages that ended in divorce. After the second, she decided that relationships weren't for her. She focused on her career, on her friendships, on her personal development. She underwent Jungian therapy for 3 years, confronting patterns that came from generations back. And it was during a trip she took alone to celebrate her 50th birthday that she met someone. A stranger in a cafe who started a conversation about a book she was reading. They talked for hours, and she felt something she had never felt before. It wasn't the excitement of previous relationships. It was calm. It was security. It was recognition. They got married last year. The third story is perhaps the most revealing. A young man of 26 who always had an easy time finding partners, but never managed to maintain a relationship for more than a few months. He was handsome, successful, charismatic, but something always went wrong. At 24, He had a breakdown. Everything he had built collapsed. He lost his job, his girlfriend, his apartment, and in the 2 years that followed, he lived what he describes as the dark night of the soul. He confronted fears he didn't even know he had. He recognized patterns of behavior that came from his father, his grandfather, generations of men who had never learned to connect truly. And when he emerged from that phase, he was a different person. The first woman he met after that became his wife, not because she was different from the previous ones, but because he was different. These stories illustrate something that Carl Jung wrote, but that few understood. When two people meet at the right time, after having completed their respective preparations, the meeting has a different quality. It's not the feverish passion that romantic culture glorifies. It's a mutual recognition, a feeling that this is inevitable, a certainty that comes from somewhere beyond logic. Neuroscience offers a fascinating perspective on this. Researchers have discovered that couples in deeply satisfying relationships show patterns of neural synchronization. Their brainwaves literally harmonize when they are together. But this synchronization doesn't happen with just anyone. It requires that both have developed a certain level of internal coherence first. You can't synchronize with another if you yourself are in chaos. But there's something crucial that Andrew Huberman revealed in episode 59 regarding the science of love that directly connects with what Carl Jung discovered. He explained that there are 4 attachment styles that form in childhood and completely mold how we relate as adults. Secure attachment, when the child had consistent and responsive caregivers. Anxious ambivalent attachment, when the caregivers were inconsistent. Anxious avoidant attachment, when the caregivers were distant or rejecting. And disorganized attachment, when the caregivers were a source of both comfort and fear. What's fascinating is that the neural circuits we form with our caregivers in childhood are the same circuits we use to connect romantically as adults. This means that if you had insecure attachment in childhood, you'll repeat those patterns in adult relationships, unless you do conscious work to reorganize those circuits. And here's the connection to Carl Jung. The individuation process, which he mapped out, is exactly the work necessary to reorganize these circuits. When you confront your inner darkness, you're confronting the attachment wounds from childhood. When you reconnect with your authentic essence, you're creating a secure attachment with yourself. And that secure internal attachment is what allows you to create a secure attachment with another. Andrew Huberman also spoke about something he called the positive illusion. It's a neurological phenomenon where people in love see their partners in a more positive light than objective reality would justify. For a long time, this was seen as something negative, as self-deception. But recent research shows that couples who maintain a certain level of positive illusion have more lasting and satisfying relationships. Carl Jung would have explained this differently. He'd say that when we find someone with whom we have a deep connection, we project archetypes onto that person. We see in them the idealized animus or anima, and that projection isn't necessarily a problem. It can be the beginning of an integration process. The challenge is to maintain that projection long enough for the relationship to deepen, and then gradually withdraw the projection and see the person as they really are. Relationships that survive this transition become extraordinarily profound. Rare souls experience this process differently because they've already done part of the integration work before finding a partner. The initial projection is less intense. They don't idealize in the same way. They recognize, and that recognition has a different quality. It's calmer, deeper, more lasting. Let me give you a practical protocol now to accelerate your preparation. This isn't magic. It's applied neuroscience combined with Jungian wisdom. First, practice active imagination. This is a technique that Carl Jung developed to dialogue with unconscious parts of yourself. Set aside 15 minutes a day, enter a state of relaxation, and invite a part of you to appear. It could be your fear of intimacy, your wounded inner child, your inner darkness. Don't force anything. Just observe what arises and dialogue with it. This process dramatically accelerates integration. Second, pay attention to your dreams. Carl Jung believed that dreams are messages from the unconscious. Keep a dream journal beside your bed. Write down everything you remember as soon as you wake up. Over time, you'll start to see patterns, and those patterns will reveal what still needs to be integrated. Third, cultivate social homeostasis consciously. Andrew Huberman explained that we need connection, but the type of connection matters. During your preparation, seek connections that challenge you to grow, not connections that keep you stagnant, friends who make you question your patterns, conversations that take you out of your comfort zone. This will mold the neural circuits that you'll use when you find the right person. Fourth, expose yourself to controlled discomfort. Neuroplasticity is activated by novelty and challenge. Do things that scare you a little. Travel alone. Start a project that seems too big. Have difficult conversations that you've been avoiding. Each discomfort overcome strengthens the circuits of resilience that you'll need in a deep relationship. Fifth, practice receptivity. Rare souls often develop a defensive posture as protection against a world that doesn't understand them. But that same defense can block the connection they so desire. Consciously practice being open. Look people in the eyes. Allow yourself to be seen. This will reprogram your nervous system for the state of receptivity that attracts deep connections. And here's something that few people understand about synchronicity and relationships. In November of 2024, there was an event called Beyond Jung Living Synchronicity that brought together the world's leading experts on the subject. One of the most important conclusions was that synchronicities aren't just passive signs. They can be cultivated. When you live in alignment with your authentic self, when you follow your intuition even when it doesn't make logical sense, when you trust the process even when it's painful, you increase the frequency of synchronicities in your life. And that includes relational synchronicities, seemingly random encounters that turn out to be deeply meaningful, conversations with strangers that change your perspective, being in the right place at the right time to meet someone who will transform your life. These aren't coincidences. They're manifestations of an alignment that you've cultivated through inner work. So what does the universe do with rare souls before sending the right person? It forces them to develop internal coherence. It puts them in situations that demand growth. It keeps them alone until they learn to be whole with themselves. And only then, when they no longer need another person to feel complete, does it send someone with whom they can share that completeness. You might be wondering what phase you're in right now, whether you're in the breakdown of old beliefs, confronting your inner darkness, reconnecting with your authentic essence, or if you're already seeing the final signs that your preparation is complete. The truth is, only you can answer that. But I can give you an indicator. If you're watching this video this far, if this content resonates with you in a deep way, it's because you're one of those rare souls. And if you're one of those souls, then the preparation process is happening, whether you're conscious of it or not. The only choice you have is whether to resist or collaborate. If you resist, the process will take longer and be more painful. If you collaborate, if you embrace the phases even when they hurt, the process accelerates. And the faster you complete this preparation, the faster you become magnetic to the person who's being prepared for you. Because that's what most people don't understand. It's not just you who's being prepared. Somewhere out there, someone else is going through the same process. And that leads me to reveal something Carl Jung wrote. But that's rarely discussed. He believed that there are archetypal connections between people that transcend time and space. When two people are destined to meet, there's a sort of magnetic field that draws them together, even when they don't know each other yet. This field strengthens as they both advance on their journeys of individuation. Neuroscience can't fully explain this yet, but there's fascinating research on quantum entanglement in biological systems that suggests that non-local connections may exist. This means that two people on opposite sides of the world could be somehow connected on a level that science is still trying to comprehend. It's possible that the synchronicities that rare souls experience before meeting are manifestations of this pre-existing connection. What does this mean in practice? It means that while you're doing your inner work, while you're confronting your inner darkness and reconnecting with your authentic essence, you're not just preparing yourself, you're literally calling the right person closer. Each step you take towards your integration is a signal that reverberates through the universe, and the person who's destined for you is picking up those signals. Even if unconsciously, Lori Gottlieb, in her episode with Andrew Huberman, spoke about how our unique wounds and strengths influence our choices in partners. She explained that we're often attracted to people who activate our unhealed wounds, repeating destructive patterns. But when we do the work of healing, that attraction shifts. We stop being drawn to people who replicate our traumas and start being drawn to people who can help us continue growing. This is the true gift that the universe gives to rare souls who complete their preparation. Not just that the right person appears, but the right person feels right. There's no more confusion of mistaking intensity for compatibility. There's no more the tendency to fall in love with potential instead of reality. There's clarity. There's recognition. There's the feeling of finally being home. Someone else is confronting their own inner darkness, reconnecting with their own authentic essence, developing their own internal coherence. And when you're both ready, the universe will find a way to put you in the same place at the same time. It's inevitable. Synchronicity will guarantee it. You've just received a knowledge that unites Carl Jung and Andrew Huberman in a way that few channels dare to do. The profound psychology of a century ago, validated by the neuroscience of 2025. If this revelation touched something in you, if you felt a recognition while listening, the super thanks isn't just financial support. It's you saying, keep revealing these connections. It's you financing the next bridge between ancient wisdom and modern science. When you click on the golden heart, you become part of a community that understands that personal growth is the path to true love. Now, tell me in the comments, what's the most striking synchronicity you've ever experienced? Are you in the dissolution phase, confronting your inner darkness, or reconnecting with your authentic essence? Or are you already seeing the final signs, feeling that something big is about to happen? I want to read your story, because every shared story is a confirmation that you're not alone in this process. And who knows, the person who's being prepared for you might be reading the same comments. The universe works in mysterious ways, but one thing is certain: if you've made it this far, you're a rare soul. And rare souls always find their way to each other. The question was never whether you'll find your person. The question has always been, when will you be ready? And with each day that you continue your inner work, that moment draws closer.